Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this The Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better, and if you want to keep up to date with all things Clown Decade, please do subscribe to the channel and of course become a channel member. Now, today we are going through, once again, one of the most boring scandals that you could possibly imagine, that everyone's saying could bring down the Labour government, and, well, this time it's the Chancellor getting in trouble rather than the Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Minister. So we may as well just jump into the nitty gritty. What did Rachel Reeves not do? So when Reeves put her 4-bedroom detached house in Dulwich, South London, on the market for £3,200 a month when she moved into a flat above 10 Downing Street with her family after Labour's election victory last year, Reeves registered out of interests suggest the property was quickly snapped up and she has been paid rental income since September. The problem, however, for Reeves is that in Southwark Council requires private landlords in certain areas, including where her home is, to have a licence to rent out their property. The rules came into force in 2023 and the licence costs £900. Landlords must submit documents proving their property is fit for purpose, including gas, electric and fire safety certificates, floor plans and tenancy agreements. And Reeves failed to do the required licence, a fact that became public on Wednesday night after an article in the Daily Mail. Now, having all this paperwork to say yes, your gas, electric and fire safety is all certified, I understand that. Paying £900 for a licence to rent out your property? Obviously mad. And in fact, quite a lot of people who do rent out property, have lodges and things like that, say yeah, it's quite rare that you actually need a licence for this. Usually you do just rent it out. You usually have a renting agency do all this stuff for you too, which we will get into. When it comes to what Rachel Reeves did here, it's nowhere near as bad as Angela Rayner's, and even on Angela Rayner's scandal I was relatively defensive, because let's face it, we all try and dodge tax. Rachel Reeves wasn't even trying to do that really. £900 is, you know, it's a lot of money to some people, obviously. When you're a minister, you will be happy to pay £900 because you can pay that off literally in a month with the rent. So to a lot of people, including me, it looks like this was a genuine mistake, and there's absolutely no reason why Reeves would not pay this if she knew she had to, which is where the confusion comes in and where my sympathy stops. But first it's worth pointing out the punishments for not having a licence. Renting out a home in such an area without a licence is a criminal offence. Penalties can include a civil fine of up to £30,000, prosecution, an unlimited fine, a rent repayment order and being added to the National Rogue Landlord database. That is absurd. Because you didn't pay £900 for a very niche licence that everyone who is a landlord says they don't even know about, is an absolutely ridiculous punishment. Jacob Rees-Mogg was saying this on the Daily Tea yesterday. Ultimately, when you are being ruled in a democracy, you have to be ruled by consent, and when you have ridiculous laws like pay £900 for this licence, otherwise you have an unlimited fine and you're considered a rogue landlord, people aren't going to take this seriously. A rent repayment order is a financial penalty that forces a landlord who has broken the law on housing standards to pay back part or the entirety of the rent. So yeah, because she's rented it out for about a year or something like that, on top of the civil fine of £30,000, she could also have to pay back whatever 3,200 times 12 is, something like £40,000. Just under 40,000, in fact. And so you may be asking, why did Reeves not get a licence? Well, on Wednesday, a spokesman for the Chancellor said that she had been unaware of the need to get such a licence because it applied only to certain parts of Southwark. And not only that, even if you live there, people won't know about it. Hell, literally everyone I know who's a landlord, and everyone I've listened to online, on The Spectator and all that, and the Times Radio, they have all said the same thing. I rent out properties, I didn't even know certain councils you needed a licence for it. It's madness, honestly madness. In a letter to the Prime Minister released on Wednesday night, Reeves said she had been regrettably unaware that the licence was necessary. She wrote, "There are selective licensing requirements in this ward for renting out property. Regrettably, we were not aware that a licence was necessary, and so we did not obtain the licence before letting the property out." However, emails released on Thursday afternoon by Downing Street revealed that Reeves' estate agent had discussed the cost of a licence with her husband. It was agreed that the letting agent would get the licence, but it did not happen. The agent said that the application could have been done after the tenants moved in. It was mentioned 7 times in 2 different email chains. This is the thing, though, and why I have a bit of sympathy for Reeves. If your agent is telling you, "Oh, we will deal with that license. Just give us the money for it," and it can only be assumed if it was in this email chain, Reeves had paid that money, and then they don't get it. Realistically, it's not Reeves' fault. It's not at all, and that email chain seems to exonerate Rachel Reeves. Okay, she knew about it. People are asking, why didn't she check that she actually had it? Because ultimately, 1, you're going to trust your letting agent, and 2, not being funny here, if you are Chancellor of the Exchequer and in charge of all the country's finances, no matter how bad a job she might be doing, there's much better things I'd rather she be doing than checking if she has a licence. Let's be realistic here. Anyway, does this mean that Reeves misled Starmer and the independent advisor on ministerial interests? On the face of it, this is possible. The emails were sent by her husband, Nick Joycey. Why do they I've noticed this trend recently. An awful lot of women in politics seem to refuse to take their husband's name. Rachel Reeves, married to Nick Joycey. Obviously, you've got Yvette Cooper, who's married to Ed Balls, didn't take the Balls name. I guess it's all to do with feminism, but anyway, it's by the by. But it seems inexplicable that when the story emerged, the Chancellor would not have checked the status of the licence, whether Joycey had any knowledge of it, and whether he had paid the £900. In other words, it's still a bit up in the air. Because this is the thing, she referred herself to the ethics advisor, and the ethics advisor pretty much instantly said, yeah, she's fine, she can't have known about it. But then obviously you have this email chain saying the exact opposite. So is this the end of the matter? No, we may have Reeves's latest explanation for her failure to get a rental licence, but we have yet to hear Starmer's response to what appears to be her implicit acknowledgement that she misled him when she said she was unaware that she needed a licence. Perhaps more worryingly for the Chancellor, Sir Laurie Magnus, the Prime Minister's sleaze advisor, has not responded to Reeves' admission either. On Wednesday night, he cleared her after speaking to Starmer. Magnus said that her inadvertent failure to secure the appropriate licence did not need to be investigated under the ministerial code. The question is whether, after her misleading statement, he will reconsider that decision. And it's going to look like rank hypocrisy if he doesn't, frankly, because of the whole Boris Johnson and cake thing. The Times finally ponders how much damage this has actually done to Reeves and the government. Well, Starmer wants to keep his Chancellor in the post, given what we are now less than a month away from a critical budget, and the financial confidence of the bond market is in part reliant on her remaining in post. I don't think she can really do that much damage by leaving, to be honest with you. We're already in a worse situation than when Liz Truss was in charge. Let's just bear that in mind. So realistically, I think swapping her out could even improve it for all we know. But for Labour, which is already struggling with public perception, that is just as sleazy as the previous Tory government. This latest revelation will still be deeply unwelcome. Some will question the very principle of a senior politician being able to make over £3,000 a month by renting out their home when they have been given effectively free accommodation at the expense of the taxpayer in Downing Street. I don't really mind her renting out her home. Again, this is more a story on the London housing market. No, I know how it sounds, but nowhere should be renting at all for over £3,000 a month if it's a basic 4-bedroom family home. If it's a mansion, makes sense. But no, this is a 4-bedroom family home. Like, this is what you would expect from a family who have 3 children, which really we should all be wanting. The Tories want the man to know how she can remain in post, having effectively misled both the PM and Magnus on Wednesday. For Reeves, the government more broadly, the pressure is not going away. Yeah, once again, it's a case of, wow, look how terrible this looks, more than it is any sort of principled get sleaze out of politics. What Rayner did was somewhat sleazy, but again, I will defend this. What this is Rachel Reeves' agent completely screwing up, and for some reason, everyone's now expecting both of them to be asking the letting agent, hey, did you actually get that licence in the end? When realistically, given that in the email chain we know the agent said they'll sort it, they would be criminally liable for it anyway. You can't blame Reeves and her husband for not checking up on a rental agent who should have been doing the basics of their job. That's absurd. Anyway, that's where we're up to at the moment, and knowing me, the podcast will be out later to be fair, but I have been under the assumption that Rachel Reeves will be pretty much fine, given how well that's gone recently with quite a few of the people in the cabinet. She'll probably be gone by next week. So a spokesman for Southwark Council said, when we became aware of an unlicensed property, we issued a warning letter advising the landlord that they have 21 days to apply for a licence. Enforcement actions such as fines are reserved for those who do not apply within that time, or where a property is found to be in an unsafe condition. The spokesman said the council could not comment on individual cases. So this makes it even worse for the rental agents, more than it does for Rachel Reeves. Tribunals also do not show leniency to landlords who plead ignorance of the rules. Sure, but again, it's quite easy, I would imagine, for Rachel Reeves and the family to sue the letting agent for not doing their job that they said they were going to do. Giles Pacha, a partner at Anthony Gold Solicitors, told The Times it's always the landlord's responsibility to ensure that the property has a licence if a licence is required. There is the defence of a reasonable excuse, but landlords saying, "Oh, I just didn't know, it was an honest mistake," none of that washes at tribunal. That's not a reasonable excuse. I'm fine with that. The thing is that it would have been so much better if they said, "Oh, we did know about it, I thought our letting agents were the ones dealing with that," because that's actually true in the email chain. The problem is with Reeves is that she'll obviously have just said, "Oh, I don't even know we need a licence." That's because her husband knew, and obviously they don't really talk about that around the dinner table because it's incredibly uninteresting. I believe Rachel Reeves didn't know about this, her husband probably did, and therefore, anyway, it should be on the husband rather than her. So again, she should be safe to stay, but you never know with modern politics. I've got it wrong before, and I don't really want to plant my flag in any particular side when making a prediction here, because we are in clown decade. Haryan Wheeler, an independent local estate agent, has apologised to Reeves for failing to apply for a licence on her behalf despite having offered to do so. It said in a statement that the oversight had happened because a property manager resigned on the Friday before a new tenancy began on the following Monday. So the old property manager, I imagine, had plans to apply for said licence, and then the next one probably didn't know about it. As its advertised fee of 18% for letting and managing the property, the agency would have earned almost $7,500 in commission from the Chancellor's house. Gareth Martin, the owner of Harvey and Wheeler, declined to comment. Founded in 1855, the agency advertised on its website, "It is no secret that the letting and property management can be a complex minefield to navigate. Our job is to ensure that everything runs smoothly," which they haven't done here. It added, "Whether you're making your first move into the letting business or a long-term landlord, you can be confident that you, your property and your tenants are in safe, capable hands." Imagine having that on the national newspaper of record after 170 years of doing pretty well in terms of helping out landlords with letting. Incredible. Landlords can use reliance on a letting agency to manage their property as a defence to the tribunal if it is written into their property management contract that the agency is in charge of dealing with selective licensing, which they have said in the email chain that they did. But the landlord would also have to show that they had a reasonable excuse for not finding out about or being able to handle the licensing application themselves. That's where the problem comes in, but again, that's down to the agency rather than the landlord. Probably becoming Chancellor of the Exchequer would cover that, Pacha said. It's not one that comes up in case law before, but that would be a defensive, reasonable excuse, potentially. Yes, I think it would. Sorry, Rachel Reeves had much better things to worry about than whether she had a £900 licence, especially when her husband's dealing with it, and especially when the husband has outsourced all those worries to a letting agency. Land registry documents for Reeves' home, seen by The Times, show a mortgage from HSBC secured against the home dated November 16, 2012, with a contract between the bank and the Chancellor and her husband. Assuming it was bought with a standard residential mortgage rather than a buy-to-let loan, they would have to apply to their lender for consent to let, or else they could have breached the terms of their mortgage contract. The bank could fine a homeowner or, in extreme cases, repossess their property. Wow. It could actually get worse then than just a small, well, not small, it's rather large fine from this particular civil dispute. Specifically with HSBC, their terms and conditions allow for a mortgager with permission to let their home out for up to 27 months. If the couple had applied at the time they let the property out in September last year, this consent to let could last until December next year. Reeves' mid-century house is on a private road where surrounding trees of Dulwich wood stood bright in autumn colours. A bit of a weird paragraph we're going into here. Curtains and blinds were drawn at the modest clapboard property. Discarded footballs and swings in the garden suggest the family may be renting the 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. Neighbours were aware that Reeves had lived on the estate but did not want to comment. Surrounded by large houses and a short walk from Dulwich College, A public school, the quiet neighbourhood in South East London, is one frequented by dog walkers, cyclists and Waitrose delivery vans, so it's a very nice place and probably explains why it's over £3 to rent out a month, but that is still a ridiculous amount of money. Which does lead me to ask, how's Rachel Reeves affording all this? She was, you know, she was basically tech support in a bank. Not even tech support necessarily, but support in a bank. What does a husband do? That would be probably how they afford this. And to be fair, MPs do get a very, very decent salary, so that probably helped as well, but, well, who knows. So is this going to lead to Rachel Reeves getting the sack? Probably not at this point. This is possibly something to add to the list of things that will get her sacked in the end, because I don't think she's lasting forever. Basically, everyone hates her. Part of the reason that these people are in government was to get rid of sleaze within politics. This is just the latest in a line of sleaze cases, and it's really not going to be helping anyone. In fact, do I have the poll? I do, in fact. I believe this is from the Telegraph, and out of 13,642 votes there, 81% of them think that she should go for breaking housing laws, and this did break the law. This is a criminal matter. Will it go to court? I can't imagine it will. There's a lot of privilege to being the Chancellor, and one of them is, yes, you get a light slap on the wrist for things like this. But the point of bringing this poll up is that, especially in the Telegraph, we shouldn't be surprised by this, a right-wing paper read by right-wingers, is that effectively, yes, they have no sympathy for any of this. What they see is, oh, you came in because you hated the Tory sleaze, which we did too. Well, any even whiff of sleaze coming from you, you need to go. And I can completely understand this position, but ultimately I am really for de-radicalising everyone and saying, can we all just have level heads for a second, otherwise nothing is ever going to get done. Because if we can get rid of someone for a simple mistake like this, we can get rid of anyone for anything, though I do understand the vindictive retribution that an awful lot of Tories will have upon Rachel Reeves. Anyway, I think with that is everything I have on this subject for now. If she ends up getting the sack, then I guess there'll be a follow-up video, but I don't think that is going to be the case. I said that about Angela Rayner though, so expect a video out next week. Anyway, with that is everything that I had for you for today. So Walls of Westminster is out later today. Tomorrow it's Laughing at the Guardian with some whamming. Next Tuesday it's Tosh News, and from the polling that I put on my YouTube channel, it looks like it's going to be Deus Ex Human Revolution for the next few gaming streams, so do look forward to that. Right, do subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, become a channel member, leave super chat, super thanks, all great ways to help out the channel. With that is everything I had for you for today, so once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.